Have many of you dealt with addicts? Okay. Well, while you and me can sit here and be like, Jesus Christ, that is an incredible low. In reality for them, it can't even be near rock bottom because everybody's rock bottom is different. Natalie's rock bottom could be not having money to buy a pair of shoes. Well, my rock bottom could be I'm about to die. So there's a lot of differences there. So while you and me are like, oh my God, how is this woman unsatisfied with her life? It's just a matter of perspective. And that's a lot of what homelessness is. Because how many of you around Shelby County know the long man with the beard who's really scrawny and takes his shirt off a lot and stares at you?
Okay.
Is he the one that rides his bike?
Ticket, but his brothers took it from him because they know that he won't stay.
Yeah, exactly. He's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And while we're like, dude, tons of people want to help you, he's like, hey, it's fine. It's not. And so it's just, we have to remember that when we talk about issues like this. Because like some of you are poking at it, but I wasn't sure if you actually like understood it.
All right, so Phil, let's put a dot. Let's dot the genius that you just brought into the room. So relate that right back. You almost did. So what is that telling us about how he behaves once he gets money and because of his addiction? What does that tell us about our responsibility for him?
Well, that's a black and white area because on some hands, a lot of people are like, Larry, let me help you. Let me throw you in the home and things. Because he's been to Open Door of Hope, which is that local men's shelter. People have tried to help them. But like I said, it comes back to rock bottom. You can try and force somebody's hand at getting help all you want, but until they reach that rock bottom, their personal low, to where they're going to instantly realize themselves, Mother of God, I have a problem, I need help, it's not going to work. Because you've probably read about it. You've read about people who've gone to rehab, whose parents have forced them to go to rehab, or whose friends forced them to go to rehab, and they're clean for about 2 to 3 months. But because they never personally hit that rock bottom, they're just going to fall back in. They're going to relapse. Because that's what addiction is. Until you can firstly realize that, oh my God, this really did control my entire life, it's going to come back and consume you again. And for you comic book fans, think of Venom from Spider-Man.
So, you want to go? Okay. So basically, what I think Phil is getting at is there's only so much we can do if someone is not willing to take our help and our advice. Because I mean, when it comes to answer the whole obligations thing, I feel like there is something we should and we can do, but there's only so much of it that we should do because doing any more would be wasting energy and money. Like they kept saying how like the same couple from Tent City is talking about how they're putting everybody in homes, yet and they're getting rid of the tent city. But the problem with this is that half of the people that are being put in these homes don't know how to survive in society. Because they're just they're used to getting things handed to them, and so once they're put into these homes, it's like such a drastic change where like they have to pay bills, they have to go out and seek a job, and actually basically fend off for themselves, and they're just gonna basically end up giving up that home, losing it like they did the first time, and just going back to nothing. And right there, like the state loses like so much money, and it's not like we didn't try. So the state tried, but they just can't survive on their own. Or even like as individuals, if we were to go out and help them, if we were to hand them stuff like food or clothes and stuff, it'd be just paying into the same repeating game that we've been doing so far.
A short way to summarize.
Did I just finish that thought? Okay. So basically, like if you keep handing people things and saying here, and then coming back later and saying you need to do something about this and like get up and like actually go out and like seek a job at home. I mean, they may not say it, but in their minds it's just like, why? If I don't do it tomorrow, you're just gonna come back and give me more food that I don't have to work for, and I can just sit here and eat it, eat that
First of all, how many of you think the homeless programs are funded by the state typically? Okay, good, because they're not. Typically, they are private organizations. Second of all, do you feel that it's not just those workers' obligations, that if someone at your job came in that was homeless or you knew was struggling to get back on their feet, would you help them out if you could?
Well, I mean, that's a different question. Obviously, if this person has a job, he is trying.
Well, you're saying...
No, what I'm saying is that there are a lot of people out there who just are not trying to better themselves.
They just like get used to living
Yeah.
off the government money
Yeah, exactly.
and government housing, and like you ask them online, you know,
But
the
there was
government's paying for it.
before
That's
the
such a
cult.
hard question to even answer because it's so like split between people who, when you think of homelessness, don't try to do anything, and then there's people that actually do try. So like, how do you help people that are like both in the same pot that are so diverse like that? You know what I mean?
So now you're all beginning to see the big picture now, how not black and white of an issue this is.
Right. And I worked, when I went to GSP, I worked at a homeless shelter. And there were we went there and we packed food for people. And like the joy and excitement you saw on their faces when they got food, because that might be the only food they got that week. It was just like very humbling to see like how much like we're like blessed with, you know, and we just take it for granted. So.
And sometimes you have to think, let's say I'm an alcoholic and I go apply for a job and I'm trying to better myself. That job might turn me down because I was an alcoholic or because somebody there knows me and knew that I was an alcoholic. So it's not all like a pretty picture where we're given all these opportunities to get all these jobs. Like maybe they are trying and they're just being turned down. And that's where I said injustice does take place.
So
If somebody is
that's not
trying for
prejudice,
change,
that's based
like,
on prejudice, though.
yeah.
Yeah, for example, there was one man in the 10 City video who had like a criminal offense 15 or 18 years ago, and jobs were still turning him down because of that. And you know, he was trying to get started again and feed his family,
And he kind of just
could
can't even
not
get
get
out
a
of it
job
because he's not given the
because-
chance to.
Right, and I feel like no matter how hard like we try or our government tries, it's still like thrown back on us in the bigger picture of it, I guess, because things like don't work, it's still our fault, like if they don't work, if that makes sense. Like if things do work, then our government's praised, but if they don't, it's still our government's fault, even if it's really about the people and if they're willing to try.
So let me ask you a question. Based on our town, how many homeless support things do you think we have? Just an approximation.
I mean, I don't know a specific number.
Or
I know
just
we
take a
have
guess. Take a guess. How many would you think?
3 or 4.
3 or 4? What about you, Natalie?
2 or 3.
What about you, Bates?
I think 4.
What about you, Cole?
1.
1? What if I told you there was about 8? 8 running in this one town. There's a Place to Sleep, which is an organization that gets beds. There's Open Door of Hope, which is an organization that helps men and gives them the tools that you all are saying. They do AA, they do drug addiction counseling, they give them how to do bills, they give them jobs, they support them, they give them rights on a strict contract of you don't screw up and we won't leave you. What if I told you there was the women's shelter? What if I told you there's Serenity Center, that's a food bank that just gives you food? There's God's Closet, which gives you clothes for free and helps you figure out your resume. There's God's Kitchen, which is a soup kitchen that runs every day a week. I mean, what is this? Does that change anything that you all think?
Yeah, so what you're saying is that there's plenty of support out there, and there are plenty of people willing to help, but we're falling back to the same issue, that there are people who
Just don't want to do it.
would take the help, and there are people who just won't, even if it's all available. Like, to use a different source, the last of the videos, the Detroit one, like, those people could all really, I'm sure a lot of those people could use help, but it's just such a big amount of like funding that would require to help all those people that's basically impossible.
And
Well,
that's the
it's really
question
hard.
that's the question that goes back to should other states, you know, get into that and involve themselves, and I think that, you know, other states should help Detroit.
You're all kind of hitting around the nail I'm trying to get you all to hit on. What I'm saying is, how many of you knew these were options?
I mean, I knew there were options out there.
Well, I mean, like, but you personally knew, but this was in Shelby County.
I
but
knew
this
like
is a-
about 4 of those.
4 of those.
Right.
Okay. Now let's say you were homeless.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of don't
Yeah.
know.
How are you supposed to figure out these other things? Sure, you might hear about it from another homeless person, assuming you talk to them. But how is it our responsibility to inform the homeless and those who are trying to get back on their feet of these? How would you go about doing
Or
that?
how do you like single
Yeah.
those people out? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
so
like you
it-
can't do that.
Just like we get informed on scholarship offers, we
Exactly.
should inform them on certain things, like it's an opportunity.
It's harder
just
to
like-
do that though, because you can't, a lot of them are like, they drift around. You can't really just pinpoint them and be like, you know, here's information. Because,
Right.
I mean, I guess there are places around the city you could post boards and things
Mm-hmm.
like that, but it's just kind of a hard thing to do.
There's a lot of places, like, for example, down at the library, you know, always down at the library, there's a lot of brochures for different things. You know, sort of, libraries are sort of a lot of the times where people like that end up, you know, during the day, because you have computers, books, whatever, you know. So places like that would be a pretty good place to spread information about those sorts of things, rather than just having the library workshops, you know, maybe have something about the main shelter or something like that.
Going back to what I wanted to say to someone behind me had said ages ago, we don't need to give them the solution outright. Money, clothes would be nice to give them. We need to give them the tools and the knowledge, because that's what helps them be self-sustainable. If we just give them a solution outright, they become like pets. They expect it. They become dependent on us. We need to give them something that allows them to think and work for themselves.
So the other side of the coin that nobody's really talked about yet is like the refugee crisis in Syria. Like that was one of the videos with the crosstalk. You know, they're homeless too. So are we still obligated to help them? Because if we don't, then they're just kind of walking into these countries and just kind of stuck because they don't have really as much aid as they would here. Because like Phil said, there's 8 homeless things in Shelby County.
Yeah.
Well, I mean in Syria or in, I don't know, like Hungary, there might be 4 in a 100-mile radius.
And it may sound cold, but we have a problem of our own as a country to solve before we go and dedicate our time and resources to helping another country.
And before you can even really begin to examine refugee crises like that, that's a completely different gray area. That differs greatly from a homeless problem in America as a whole, because that draws in politicals, government lines. How would you even get them across here without pissing somebody off? How many troops would we have to deploy? We have to account for where we're going to send these people, because we're just going to go back in the system, like Christine was saying. You know, as much as we're talking about addicts having kids and them just going to foster care, all right, now we're going to bring over 20K kids from Syria who don't speak a lick of English. We're going to make them leave their parents behind for the hope, the false cade of, here's a better life, enjoy America.
Well, I'm not saying bring it over here, but like even Europe, like they were talking about this on Crosstalk, Europe's kind of pushed them away. Like, okay, we'll shove you in Greece, which has the worst economy like in the world right now.
And
Yeah, you got to ignore things like that. I mean, again, it's a black and white issue. It's not a black and white issue. It's where can we put you that's going to be a